Okay, so welcome to AP Computer Science Principles. In this course, we're gonna be doing some coding. We're gonna be writing code, and we have a few options when it comes to writing code because when you work on your programming application, you're not required to do it in a specific language. And so we're gonna look at two coding languages. One of them is text-based. That means that you're actually writing lines of code, or you're typing them out. And the other one is block based, which is where you have some code and you just click on the block, you drag and drop. And so I'm going to show you kind of both of them so you can see what they look like. But first, let's go through the installation process. For text-based coding, we're going to be using Python, which is one of many programming languages. We search python.org. That brings us here. Now what we want is we want to download Python. And what we want to do is make sure we download Python for Windows if you're using Windows, or for a Mac if you're using a Mac. And so I'm going to go to downloads here. I'm going to click on Windows. And I do want to get the latest release here, but I'm actually going to go here to stable releases, and we're going to download 3.7.9, which is an older version. And I say older, but it was only just released August 17th, 2020. It appears to be an older version, actually a more current version, the 3.8.5, which was July 20th. In either case, we're just going to take one of these. Now, because we are doing, I'm doing purely a Windows installation. The process for a Mac, and I'll show you what a Mac would look like before I do the Windows installation. You click Downloads Mac, and you can click either the latest release, but you can go with the stable version. What they mean by stable means that they've identified any issues with that version of the Python software and fixed those issues. And so you would click here if you're using a Mac. You would click on this link, Mac OS 64-bit installer. But I am using a Windows, so I'm gonna click on the Windows x86-64 executable installer. So I'll click on that. And now it's downloading it for me. I actually had downloaded this, but I'm going to cancel that one. Okay, I'm going to click here on this executable file. And this is what the initial window looks like. It is very important that we do add Python 3.7 to the path. And so make sure you click that. And we click install. And this is all 64-bit. It's not a process. The installation is not a process that should take too long. A couple minutes maybe at most. It does depend though on how old your device is, the memory, the RAM that you have available to you. Okay, so I paused it thinking it was going to take a little longer, but it concluded here. I'm gonna close this. So that's Python. Now, although Python is a programming language we're gonna use, we need an editor. So we need a place to write code. Editor for Python. You see, we can actually look up a few and just know that there's a lot of editors. You can pick from any of these lists. But if you want to follow along and have your screen look like my screen when you're coding, we're going to be using Wing 101. I've chosen this editor because it's easy to use. It's not hard to understand, pretty basic. So I'm going to go here to downloading Wing 101. Again, there's a Windows version. This is for OS X, is for a Mac. So you would click there, OS X, and notice that for me, it changed the window. So now I would click here, but I'm not using the Mac, so I'm going to go back to Windows, and I am going to click on the installer, not the zip file. I'll click here on the installer. You don't have to subscribe, so no need for that. It's downloading here. So now that I'm done downloading, I'm going to click on the executable file. I am going to allow some, the laptop is going to allow Wing to make some changes. We'll click next, accept the agreement, next. That's fine. That's where it's going to store all the files it needs to run, and then we'll just do an install. Okay, the install took close, a little over a minute or under a minute. At this point, we have the software we needed to code with Python. And so I'm going to close these. I'm going to go in here. This is the little search box, and I'm going to type Wing, and this is what shows up. And so I click on that. Well, these are some videos. Okay, so you accept the license agreement. Now I have some files that I've coded and I can use, but this is what Wing looks like for me. That doesn't mean it's going to look exactly like this for you. I'm going to go into how we can personalize the screen. So I'll share a video with that. Right now, what I want to make sure is that this is working, and so I'm going to type here a command, print hi, how are you, and notice that this is within double quotes, and we press enter and it prints hi, how are you. So that seems to be working fine. There's one last thing that I want to go over, and that's installing, I was going to say the installation, but installing Pygame. Now for that, I want to first see if I can import Pygame, and it looks like it gives me a version number. That means that I was able to import Pygame, but that's likely because I've already done this in the past. Now again, in Windows, you open a command prompt, so you type command in the search box, and this is what shows up. If you are using a Mac, then you would open a terminal window. I'm going to CD to the C drive, so the double dot means go back one folder. And there's this command that I want you to try out, test out. I've done it before, so I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to get here, but py-m, and then we use pip install -U pygame -user. Okay, now for me it says requirement already up to date. That's because I've already installed Pygame. For you, it should have basically done some installations. Maybe you would have seen quite a few files, and then at the end it should say something like install successful. Now after doing this step, go back to Wing and type import Pygame, and make sure that you get a version number, and then this prompt here, which is basically hello from Pygame, the Pygame community. It didn't do it for me again. Oh, it's because once you import Pygame, it's there. If I want to restart the shell, and now if I try to do, well, I'm not going to try, I'm just going to import Pygame, and it's imports Pygame, and it's there ready for me to use. Pygame is basically, think of it as a library where you can use different tools for graphing and so on and so forth. But that's the installation process for Python. If you have a Mac and you're installing this in a Mac, I need you to let me know if you run into any issues so that I can help you troubleshoot those issues. But that's all it takes to install Pygame. I want to see what I wanted to see at what time. We're at 10 minutes. I don't like these videos to run more than 15 minutes. But this right here, Python, is what we use to write code in a kind of like in a text-based environment. We could also, or we are also going to use Scratch. Now, if you've taken the Intro to Computer Science course, you've obviously worked with both of those environments. But this is Scratch. It is a block-based programming language created by MIT for the sole purpose to teach students how to write code. And so if I go to create, this is what I mean by block-based programming, where in Scratch, instead of actually writing text-based commands, we're going to be using these blocks, and we're going to drag those blocks and drop them here, and we can do an event. And when we click on the flag, we want to move 10 steps, and then we click on the flag and the cat moved 10 steps, which is a little hard to tell because 10 steps wasn't a whole lot. We do 40 steps, now you see it move more. This is block-based programming, and we're also going to be working with Scratch. And at the end, you're going to decide whether you want to make your application using Scratch or you want to make your application using Python. By the way, I do want to share with you again some of the stuff that we worked on in the previous year, so you can see what kind of stuff you can do with Python. And the snake game is one that we worked on last year, and so let me run this so you can see what that looks like. And so we worked on this last year. It's not a very complex game. I died, right? I hit the boundary. It's not a complex game, but you are writing code, and this is what the code looks like to make that game, to build that game. So go through the installation process. Please get back to me if you have any issues with your install.